When I graduated from Harrison High School, I could not wait to get out of Colorado Springs. I felt like there was nothing for me here, so I got out. I was going to college, doing what I was doing, but as I got older, I realized my lived experience here in Southeast or Southside or Parkside or Pikes Peak Park, I realized, it was valuable and it could impact our community in a way that, no outsider perspective could. After I graduated from MSU Denver with a Bachelor in History, I moved back to my grandma's basement and I started getting more and more involved in community work. I was relearning what Colorado Springs had to offer. But I realized it was like a tale of two cities here. On one hand, Colorado Springs was named the most desirable place to live in the country for 2 years in a row. And on the other hand, we have, southeast side of Colorado Springs that has extreme disparities that the rest of the city never faced. What we didn't realize was the disparities that we were seeing impacted our health to the extent that the life expectancy within our community was so much less than any other neighborhood within Colorado Springs.
The most important thing to know about Pikes Peak regional history is that people have lived here for thousands of years. General Palmer arrives on the scene with the railroads in the 1860s, but what he's envisioning essentially is an antidote to the East. Major cities along the Atlantic seaboard are plagued with disease and pollution and crowding and growing urban conditions. And the antidote to many was to move away from those places and to create new communities that would draw people to them. But along with that, what people fail to recognize is that you have to have a working class. Hotels, railroads, resorts. You have to have people who work in those facilities. And so from the very outset, we weren't an elite resort community. We were a community made up of all kinds of people, and lots of folks came here for their health. Other people came looking for economic, social, and political opportunity. Explosive growth to Colorado Springs economy was the placement of Camp Carson here. It means that Colorado Springs becomes much more diverse really quickly. Conversely, what that does, what Camp Carson and all these other military bases do, is the population explodes. It also creates a housing shortage, which severely affects people of color in Colorado Springs. There's simply not enough housing to go around, and they're also being discriminated against as to what neighborhoods they can live in, where they can purchase homes, etc. That there's always an infusion of new people. An interesting side effect of that is that Colorado Springs in many ways lacks a deep connection to its history or a fixed identity. Our identity sort of shifts through time based on whatever wave, economic wave, whatever sort of publicity or marketing, or even our tagline, City of Sunshine, City for Champions, Olympic City USA, whatever it has been over the years has changed based on what we were trying to be at that moment. A museum is a place of reflection that has to accurately reflect the city that it represents. So to do that, we need to capture stories of people who built this community, who've made a difference in this community, who have contributed to this community. And we happen to be sitting in my favorite gallery in this entire museum. It's Una Familia Grande, the Caneos Neighborhood Project. To really connect to a place and to feel that you are seen and that you matter, you need to see your story reflected. You need to be seen as part of that community's story. And so a young person who's grown up in the Panorama Park neighborhood could come into this museum, but they don't see themselves. They don't see anything that's familiar to them. And it gives them the message, intentional or not, that they don't matter. And that's not the truth.
The build-out of Southeast Colorado Springs began in the 60s and lasted throughout the 80s. At first, it was this exciting new development. When the 80s rolled around, it became known for its crime. Even in 2020, it's referred to as the bad side of town. It's the school district you don't want to put your kids in, the area with the highest poverty rates and a lower life expectancy. So once you consider what factors into our health, like education, neighborhood conditions, economy, you start to realize that the disparities are so much deeper than just living on the bad side of town.
Health equity is the ability to provide a fair opportunity to attain your highest level of health. Everybody should have the ability to have advantages to live their healthiest life possible. And no matter who they are or where they live or how much money they make, this should be an opportunity that's available for every single individual. The conditions and influences that we have in order to address health equity really comes down to how we want to live our best life. That could be related to the conditions in which you live and the exposures that you have that limit or enable your ability to attain your highest health potential. When we think about health and that built environment, which is the physical spaces in which you live, health and healthcare, education or economic stability, the criminal justice system, our society and our community, our neighborhoods, and our environments in which we live. These are all very important factors related to how we address social determinants of health. Where you live impacts your health more so than your genetic code. When you think about Southeast Colorado Springs and the opportunities that are available, there are limited resources, limited access to opportunities in comparison to other parts of our community.
How did this happen though? What specific policies influence these disparities? Why do some neighborhoods have a 14-year difference in life expectancy? How can we make the changes that we need to make sure our community thrives like the rest of the city? And these are the questions we'll be answering in the Daily Dose. We're here to take back the narrative of our community by telling the stories of the amazing work being done.
This is our time to be able to address these built environment factors and be able to have true influences on how to really change and provide opportunities for residents in Southeast Colorado Springs.